thought it'd be fun. We hadn't done this in a while to have the congregation do the call to worship. So let's try This Is the Day. You've done it before. I'll reteach it to you in a moment. And I'll try to decide, it's better if we have a main part and then an echoing group. And I'm trying to think, well, I told Rick a while ago we could do people 6'4" and over could do the echo. But he kind of defined to do the echo part as a duet. It would be probably maybe a couple others here. And so, and then I thought about people over 30 do part of it, and people under 30 do the echo. But, what? Oh, wait, you're not. No, you're not. Oh, there's another one. I got another one here. I thought you were saying that Marion was under 30. So we'll just do it. I think we'll do it. Since Trish is in this section, we're going to have this church sing the verse, and we'll do the echo, and the pavilion will join these two groups, the folks in the pavilion. Which one is, and you remember, so this is the day the Lord has made, this is the day, this is the day the Lord has made, this is the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it, this is the day the Lord has made. You can memorize that, that's one sentence. It goes like this, and join with me. If you know, let's just all sing it together if you know it. This is the day that the Lord has made, that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. Okay, Chris, do you mind leading this first group, and I'll bring the echo in? So if you're on this side, you're in this section, you'll join with Trish, and you're going to do the main part, and the rest of us, and the folks in the pavilion, and the people at home, we're going to sing the echo. If you don't mind.
This is the day.
This is the day
that the Lord has made.
That the Lord has made.
Let us rejoice.
Let us rejoice.
And be glad in it.
And be glad in it. Everybody. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it.
This is the day.
This is the day that the Lord has made. Boy, you guys sound so good. That's terrific. So, thanks so much. I just wanted to find a way to kind of bring us off to a good and happy and cheerful start, upbeat start, and you've done well. We've already been through the prayers, or the additional prayers that you want to add this morning. All right, let's just take a moment as we begin this time of worship. Turn your heart toward God through silent prayer. Ginger, I didn't mention that, but you'd asked for that song not too long ago, that very song that she just played, so how about that? That's a God thing when that happens. Ginger had after we had a certain song, and I forgot to say anything about it, and Dora just played it. Is this
I've heard.
Yeah, is this, Right, I forgot a couple things while ago. The pancake tie is in honor of Lent. The Shrove Tuesday is going to be this coming Tuesday, and then Ash Wednesday, the day after. We are going to have an Ash Wednesday service here at 4 o'clock. Weather permitting, I'm going to set up right over in our new arbor. So come at 4 o'clock if you'd like to be part of that service. And I forgot to mention the t-shirt drive. We're doing anyone to bring t-shirts for the district closed drive. Bring them and we'll have another box. We filled this one, we'll have another box here. So bring your t-shirt. And the upper rooms are in, as I mentioned last time. The upper rooms here. Pick one up on the way out. All right, let's stand and sing the great hymn of the church. I will sing of my Redeemer. The lyrics are on the back, or you can find number 47 and we'll go through it. The Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the I neglected to mention earlier, not one but two sets of glasses have been found around the place. Recognize these? And I would be careful if I were you when I drive out today, because there are two people driving without their glasses. But I'll put these on the table over there in the refreshment area. I forgot to mention that earlier. So happy Sunday after Valentine's Day, everyone. I don't know if anybody else got this email that's been forwarded around cyberspace, but I got it a couple of times. Here are some examples of things you should never say on the first date. Things you should never say on the first date. Number one, I don't like this restaurant all that much, but I want to use this 2-for-1 coupon before it expires. Second, that waitress knows me because I used to come here all the time with my ex. Don't ever say that on a first date. 3, did I tell you I won a trophy at a fraternity belching contest? Don't ever say that on a first date. Well, not only is it the Sunday after Valentine's Day, but it's also Transfiguration Sunday, when we in the church were calling an interesting experience that the disciples had one day. Let's take a look at this story, Luke chapter 9, starting with verse 28. They begin. Jesus went up on the mountain to pray, taking Peter, John, and James along. We're only one sentence into that story, but already we noticed something important. The text says that Jesus went up on a mountain and took Peter, Andrew, and James along. Sometimes when you follow Christ, He's going to take you into places and experiences you never dreamed about. He takes these 3 disciples, they probably had no idea what was in store for them. Sometimes when you follow Christ, He'll take you to places and experiences you never dreamed about. I recall playing high school football. I'm lettered in football, by the way. And sometimes I'd see the coach looking at me in the middle of the game, and I would get this motion, like that. And then it was my turn to go in on the field, my turn to leave the sidelines and go in. And so it's kind of like that with Jesus. You never know when Jesus is going to be calling you. Beckoning to you. Summoning you. Fred Craddock says about his life, he said, all of my life I've argued with Jesus when Jesus does this. When Jesus does this to me. And I said, no, not me, I'm not equipped. Not me. Not now. But he says, Christ just looks at me with more intensity in his eyes, and he motions again. Motions again. Craddock recalls the time he was a young preacher, only 2 weeks out of seminary. His first church, phone rang in his office. A grand old man in the church had been rushed to the hospital. Craddock went to the hospital room, and the man's wife was there, the man's children were there, the man's grandchildren were there. And when this rookie pastor walked into that desperate place the staff was, as he writes, slipping the silent sheet over the man's face because he had just died. And every eye in the room turned to look from that sheet into his face, this young pastor. And he said, all I wanted to do was run away and go home. He writes, 26 years old? What right did I have to be there? I'd only preached 9 sermons of my entire life. I was not the brightest member of my seminary class. And now in a circle of weeping strangers who turn their tear-stained faces toward me and wait for me to say something. Alone, he couldn't do it. But he and God together could and did. And it was all right. Sometimes it's an overwhelming thing to follow Christ. Like this hymn says, but if by a still small voice he calls, to pass I do not know, I'll answer, dear Lord, with my hand in thine, I'll go where you want me to go. I'll go where you want me to go, dear Lord, or mountain, or plain, or sea. I'll say what you want me to say, dear Lord. I'll be what you want me to be. Let's move on to part 2. So now we follow Jesus and the summoned disciples up the mountain. So what happened next? It says, while Jesus was in prayer, The appearance of his face changed and his clothes became blinding white. At once, two men were there talking with him. They turned out to be Moses and Elijah. Oh, what a glorious appearance they made. They talked about his journey, the one Jesus was about to complete to Jerusalem. Meanwhile, Peter and those with him were slumped over in sleep. When they came to, rubbing their eyes, they saw Jesus in his glory, in all his glory, and these two men standing with him. Blinding light, the face of Jesus shining like the sun, Moses and Elijah suddenly with Jesus. A moment of majesty, of holiness. A moment of majesty in which the disciples experienced the powerful presence of God. Are you with me? One moment was a pretty ordinary day. The next moment, the disciples are on holy ground. You know that you've had a moment like that, haven't you? Maybe when you held your first grandchild for the first time, or maybe when you came forward here to receive communion in this historic and beautiful place, and you suddenly felt so at peace, so content. You felt so filled with joy, you found yourself in the presence of God, and you felt like weeping with happiness. Those moments when you suddenly just know and feel and experience and sense and are enveloped by the very presence of God. God is near, so very near. I imagine you have noticed during your journey here that there are several places you can look around and see the hills in the distance. Sometimes fog clinging to them, and sometimes the sunlight illuminating them. Recently there was a double rainbow. Anybody else see that a couple of weeks ago on the way here? Yeah, so many of us saw that. And sometimes just on the drive here, I can look at that vista, that view, and worldly trouble just fade away, and I remember that I can trust the God. That I can trust the God who made those hills and who made that beautiful sky. We all sometimes find ourselves suddenly on holy ground. Moments of majesty and mystery when you know beyond all doubt that God is real and that you are loved by God, you're loved by this church family, and you're loved by others, and that your life matters, your life is important. And suddenly your heart is just filled with such joy and contentment and awe. I told you once before about the time I was invited by the folks at Lano Church to be a driver. They were having their children take Valentine to the nursing homes in that area. The kids would take Valentine for all the residents, and we adults were to drive the kids there and take them into the building so they could distribute the Valentines. There's a little girl about 6 years old. I didn't really know her. I'd only seen her a couple of times. But as I walked to the van to drive those kids over, this little girl walked beside me, and she slyly reached her little hand up and put her hand in mine. And as we walked from the van into the nursing home, she did the same thing. This beautiful little girl reached her hand up and put her hand in mine. I've been told that her father's in the military. He's gone a lot. And as that precious, precious little girl, that child of God, took my hand, I was no longer just in a parking lot in Texas, but I was suddenly on holy ground. I'm going to switch now to Mark's telling of this same story. Part 3. Peter said to Jesus, "Teacher, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." But Peter and the others were terribly frightened. He did not know what he was talking about. Then a shadow of a cloud passed over and covered them. From the cloud a voice said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." And those last 2 sentences are so vital. The disciples, remember, the disciples had already witnessed Jesus perform exorcisms, walk on water, heal the sick, raise the dead, and more. And now this cloud and a voice from the sky saying to the disciples, "This is my beloved son. This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." Do you get it? This man, this one man, born of a virgin, worker of miracles, is Jesus the Christ, the Messiah, the Savior of the world. And this is who he really is. Do you see it? Do you understand it? Do you believe it? This man, this one man, Jesus, is the Son of God who came to banish sin and evil, who came to help and heal and sin, wickedness, and death, and demons fleeing away. And nothing, no thing is more powerful. Jesus is the Lord of life. This is who he was, this is who he is, this is who he will be. Jesus is Lord, the Lord of all life. Verse 9. And Jesus and the disciples were coming down the mountain. Now wait. Coming down the mountain? Jesus led them back down the mountain to the valley below? Yeah. Jesus knows there's work to be done in the valley. And he leads them back down because he knows it's time for them to do the work that God sent them to do, that God needs them to do. Sometimes we should take time apart, ponder, pray, like they did when they went up on that mountaintop. Sometimes we should take time apart to ponder and pray. But remember, meanwhile, the world is waiting for a word from God. And you're the one Jesus calls to take it. You. You are the one that Jesus calls to take it. You. Peter said to Jesus, remember this back in verse 5, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 children, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. Now you just have to love Simon Peter. Here's this amazing, pyrotechnically spectacular moment, and he says, whoa, wait. I've got to take a selfie. I have to get a selfie. Wait, hold it. Let me do something to preserve the moment. Let's stay here. Let's camp out. Let's stay here. I don't want to leave. Let's try to keep everything exactly as it is now in this grand moment. But Jesus takes them back down to the valley, doesn't he? I recall talking to a woman in a former church. She adored one of the former pastors. And she told me one day wistfully, oh, those were the golden years when he was here. When he was our pastor, well, those were the best years of my life. And I felt kind of sorry for her. Because she wanted to hit rewind on her life and go back. And then hit pause. And pause in those days. And freeze time. And stay put there. Instead of heading down the mountain to do what God needed her to do. Oh, those are the best years of my life, she said. And what I wanted to say was, would you be able to put it this way? Those were the best years of my life so far? I mean, how did she know those were the best years? I want to say, can you put it this way? Those were the best years of my life so far. Well, it's nice to read this story and say, oh, what an inspiring story, what a nice story. But in this story, you see what had just happened. The Bible captures you and turns you around and sends you back down into the valley. When I was 5 or 6, I found a rope somewhere and I made one end of it into a loop, a lasso. And I put that loop outside the kitchen door and I hid underneath our dining room table. And my idea was I would try to catch some unsuspecting family members that came out of the kitchen into the dining room. I would capture them, some unsuspecting family members. They would step into that circle, that rope, and I would snare them. But it was too obvious when they came out of the kitchen. There was a rope on the floor that hadn't been there before, and I didn't get anybody. It's so obvious, you see. It should be obvious to us as well when we read the Bible that we might get caught. This book, the Bible, the stories capture us and change us. And the story today is a nice story with some pretty cool special effects. Then suddenly we're caught in that story. And Jesus does what? As he leaves that moment and takes the disciples down the mountain to face new challenges. What I discern from all that is this. We plan out our lives, but sometimes God changes our plans. My brother told me one time he had his whole life all planned out, oriented. He said he had his whole life oriented. He was going to be a campus minister. Then he spent a year on staff at a college campus and he experienced what he calls disorientation. During that year, he was surprised to find out how much he missed the local church, teasing with children and gently kidding older adults, and he missed life in the local parish. He became disoriented. By the end of that year, he experienced what he calls reorientation of his life. He became clear that God wanted him to be not a campus pastor, a campus minister, but God wanted him to be in the local church, local parish. Kind of like a GPS, when you change your course and it says recalculating, then makes the adjustment. In the same way, he found God leading him in a different way. My brother Norman recalculated, he reoriented himself, reoriented. So remember those words: orientation, disorientation, reorientation. That's going to come in handy to some of you sometime if you just remember it. Orientation, disorientation, reorientation. Sometimes you live oriented in a certain direction, but something happens, you become disoriented, but that does not mean that you can't reorient your life and emerge with new plans and new hopes and new ideas, new dreams, and maybe even find deeper joy once you reorient your life. Fred Craddock says, it just takes time. I've learned through all these years to piece together small, majestic moments of life and draw comfort and inspiration from them. I piece together these small moments of majesty in my life. The question of a child, a burst of laughter, a walk to the mailbox, struggling with the Bible text, a little prayer in the morning, a conversation with a friend, an evening meal, coming into the sanctuary when Dora, one of our musicians, is practicing the piano before the service, rehearsing, or hearing the laughter and joy that's here every Sunday. No one has to add to his list. Or the pleasing aroma that comes from some of the casseroles and food you put out on the table over there. These small moments of majesty and joy. And he says all that's enough to live by. It's enough to live for. It all adds up, he says. So Lord, help me know you and help me listen to you and for you. Help me to serve you. Give me a place in your kingdom and give me a purpose for each day. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let's pray. Would you please pray with me this prayer that Jesus taught us to say? Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
There's a mistake in the bulletin. I was kind of irritated to see that mistake and thought we ought to fire the church secretary. Then I realized, well, wait a minute, I'm it. I don't know anything like that. So I have to be firing myself. The hymn is only at number 142 in the I put snippets of the wrong song. So in other words, I was oriented for this service. I got disoriented. But thanks to Chris and Dora counseling me this morning and calming me down when I realized I was mistake, I'm now reoriented, and the way we're reoriented is we're going to sing the song from the Cokesbury. Number 142, verses 1 and 2. Let's stand as we sing together.
Thank you.
comfort and inspiration, but at the same time it brings challenge and purpose and direction. Lord, give us the courage, give us the wisdom to follow you wherever you take us, wherever you lead us, wherever you guide us. For we know that if we do, we will find the way to eternal peace and joy, and others will as well. This is our prayer. Amen.